Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana. Innaka antal alim al-hakim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. There was a question that was put to me in the break time. And the reason the brother didn't put it to me in the dars was because he thought it was a bit technical and a bit boring. And although the way the question was put was technical and boring, there was actually a very interesting message within that that is not technical and is not boring. And it's actually very, very relevant, and I suspect might take us into a whole new discussion, but I'm willing to do that because it might be of use to us all. The question, taking all the technical bits out of it, was that there are some festivals, you can correct me if I've misinterpreted the question, some festivals in what we might call folk culture, or the culture of the people, folk culture, especially traditional older folk culture, which actually is to do with total frivolity, to do with total just wasting time and even foolishness, to the extent that some of them might be called Fool's Day. And that's the name of one of the days of celebration that was being referred to. So the question was, is this really the opposite of what we're talking about in this class? And therefore, is this one of the dangers of or complete misunderstandings, or is there some kind of connection? Are there two kind of polar opposites working in this cosmos at the same time? One for the world of fools and one for the world of the people of barakah and fadl. And that was kind of the question, taking out the kind of philosophical bits. And the answer to that is twofold. And the two parts that I would like to talk about are not really maybe directly answering the question, but are things that I think are of use to us. One is, what is being frivolous and being foolish got to do with having benefit from your time? And is there any justification in being foolish and frivolous? Or is it always bad? Because what I've been saying so far would imply that we as Muslims should be trying to get connected to time and understand time and take benefit from time. And there's no real room for Fool's Day. And there's no real room in that kind of discussion I've presented so far for being silly. And that doesn't make any sense, because I'm probably the silliest person in the room and probably the biggest fool in the room. So the biggest fool shouldn't be talking about all the serious stuff. And is there any justification for my silliness, my foolishness, and my time wasting? And there's two parts to the answer. One is yes, and the other is no. So, which do you want first? Yes or no? No first. There is the complete opposite of this, is that some people actually want to waste time. In a minute we're going to talk about names and how that Laylatul Bara, Laylatul Nisf Sha'ban has many, many names. And now you can teach me some more Swedish, Norwegian, and alhamdulillah the Danes have left, so I'm not obliged to be completely fair. How many words do you have for snow? Just run off a few words, the word snow. In Swedish? Okay, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In English we have snow. Okay, Norwegian? You had a couple of... All of those? Any others? Ladies, do you have anything to add for the word snow? Right, we're going to come to the do you know how many words we have for drunk in Scottish? We have more words for drunk in Scottish than you have for snow in Swedish and Norwegian. All different levels of drunkenness. Let me try and say some that are not rude. Sloshed, drunk, of course, inebriated. How very English. How very, very English. That's not a Scottish word. Smashed, sloshed, I've said that. But there's lots of different words. Right, and in Scotland, we have a drink problem. As a society, we have a drink problem. And they're trying to deal with it, and one of the ways of dealing with it is actually getting rid of discounts on booze. So it will now be illegal to discount alcohol in Scotland, and it's a good move. Only thing is, they'll all just drive over the border to England and buy the booze there, and then still carry on drinking. But why do I say that? It's because there are lots of people that I know personally who their whole purpose of life is to get drunk. And it's really very, very sad. Very, very sad, because I know a lot of good people, but their lives are so focused on Friday night, and they're good people. They're people that you work with, I work with day in, day out, but their life is geared towards getting drunk. And now we're talking about ages. I'll test people's ages. There's a song by a well-known band in America who said, in the words were, some drink to remember, some drink to forget. Well, there's actually some drink to forget, some drink to remember. And that's why some people drink. Some people just want to waste time. And that's another word that we use, wasted. He was wasted. And then, of course, there's totally wasted. And there's other words, wasted. And there's different adjectives you can use for being wasted, because there's degrees of wastedness. And that's why the answer is no. Because that life of just wanting to be completely wasted from life, or wasted from time, or drinking, and drinking here is just symbolic. It's not about alcohol. It's actually just getting drunk in life, getting drunk in your work, getting drunk in whatever it is that you need to completely immerse yourself in, so that you no longer know what's happening in your life. I did it in swimming. I used to think that whenever I'm stressed, I swim, which is a good technique, isn't it, Dr. Saab? Right? So I used to swim every day, because I get stressed every day. And alhamdulillah, it was good for me. I swam Loch Lomond. I could have swam the Channel. I was a good swimmer. And I didn't realise that technique wasn't working anymore until one day I got out of the pool and I realised, oh, my legs are aching a bit. I'm not as fit as I thought I was. And of course I was fit, because I swam every day. And it wasn't until I looked at the clock and realised I'd just been swimming for the last 5.5 hours, and I hadn't noticed. And that's why my legs and arms were aching a bit. And I realised this isn't a good tactic for getting rid of stress, because it ain't working. Because all I'm doing is I'm just immersing myself in something to avoid what it is that's making me stressed. So I was going into frivolity, perhaps. Originally it wasn't. It was a good thing, keeping myself fit, swimming, but in the end, it was a waste of time. And I needed to deal with the real problem so I could get back to a balance, which leads me to the yes. So if you just drink, I'm not saying any of you drink, but if you drink just to get rid of time, or anything that you do just to kill time, we have that saying, oh, I'm just killing time, then it's a waste. It's against what I'm talking about. The answer, yes, is that there are times where frivolity or lahu is required. And the word lahu I use specifically because this is the hadith that's mentioned, and it's also mentioned in the Quran several times, and it's something that you need to understand what the word means. The word means that which has no benefit, or is not no direct benefit. There's nothing tangible about lahu. Lahu is something which has no purpose almost. And I gave two examples of where lahu is actually beneficial. The first one is in a marriage. Because there is no laghu between a husband and wife. And this is a hadith. There's no laghu between a husband and a wife. What does that mean? It means if you come home from work and your wife has been unable to do anything useful all day, so what she does is she watches Oprah on YouTube, or she watches this program where they have 5 women just talking about laghu for hours, and she's been building this up all day, and you've been stressed out dealing with murders and every other possible thing that shouldn't be happening in schools but does happen. You get the blame for it, and you come home and you're tired and you're exhausted and fed up, and she wants to talk about Oprah. And I turn around to her and say, well, actually, I want to talk to you about a murder that just occurred in mine. You know what this boy did? What should we talk about? Oprah. It's much more useful. It's much more beneficial. And it's probably going to save the marriage. Because it's good. She's built up this feeling. But there's also times where she just needs to think, actually, let me just listen to the rubbish he's got to talk about. And she does. She's not interested in anything that I've got to say, really. But she wants to listen because it's important. So this isn't laghu, is it? And that's why the Prophet ﷺ says there is no laghu between a husband and wife. Because when you just sit and you relax and you just talk rubbish, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. You are not wasting time. What you are doing is you are developing a relationship by talking. And that's why there is no laghu between a husband and wife. And of course, laghu here means that which is speech which has no benefit. It doesn't have any harm either, but it has no benefit. Because the stuff that's talked about on Oprah, I would never, ever want to talk to anybody about, except my wife. And that's because she's interested. And because she's interested, I don't even know if she is interested. It's just that's what she watched that day. And that's why I want to talk about it. And there's other rubbish she listens to. And there's other rubbish we talk about. But I think I can feel the benefit of that relationship. By the way, I don't swim for 5 hours anymore. You know why? Because I talk rubbish at home with my wife. You see the connection? I do swim, but now it's very focused. I swim and it's never more than 45 minutes. Why? Because I haven't got the time to swim any more than 45 minutes. And so you might ask, so is your fitness down? It is down. But when it picks up, what happens? In 45 minutes, now, when I'm just getting started again, 1 kilometre. After 2 months, it's 1.5 kilometres. And then it's 2 kilometres, but never more than 45 minutes. And I ain't going to get more than 2 kilometres in 45 minutes, so I don't even go any further. Because I know my limits now. So now, do you think it's a good thing that I've got balance in my life because of Oprah? The other program she watches is called Loose Women. I mean, what kind of title is that? All it is women just talking rubbish. Now let's see. Am I happier? Yes, I am, because I talk more rubbish. But I don't talk rubbish with the guys, because I ain't got time to waste with the guys. We don't even talk about football anymore. We don't have time for football. We don't talk rubbish. Whenever I meet my friends and my brothers, it's all focused. And that's how it should be. Because most people, they talk rubbish with the guys, and when they come home to their wife, then they can't talk about Oprah. or loose women, or loose women, maybe we'll talk about that one. But so you see, there is a benefit in talking rubbish, but it has to be in the context. There's also a time and a place for loose talk or rubbish talk when you're getting to know somebody, because the purpose of talking rubbish is not wasted. It's actually to find out who you're talking to. Because if you don't know who you're talking to, how can you deliver a message to them? The first thing, the prerequisite of talking to somebody about Islam, if that's what your purpose was, to deliver a message to them, you need to deliver the message that's appropriate to them. And if you don't know who they are, then how are you going to deliver a message? So the least a person should be able to know about somebody before they engage in doubt is their name. If you don't even know their name, how successful do you think you're going to be? And you wonder why we can't deliver the message? It's because we don't take the time to talk about things that might matter to the other person. And I'll give you a couple of stories of people that became Muslim. One of them became Muslim through Bob Marley songs. Okay, he was completely stoned outside a mosque in Zanzibar. Stone's another good word. So he didn't drink. Why would he drink anyway? He's got enough weed. So he smokes weed and alhamdulillah. So he's completely stoned outside the mosque. Simple. Why is he standing outside a mosque? Oh, of course, he's not Muslim. I should have added that. And he's got dreadlocks, and you probably guess what his beliefs were. So we came out of the mosques, and I says, "Hey, hey." Then I knew how stoned he was. So we started talking about Bob Marley. Next day, Maghrib time, who's standing outside the mosque? My pal, completely stoned again. So after the salah, you just wait a minute. We're just going to do some praying. Just going to hit some raka'ah. Oh. And then afterwards we talk. Come out, we talked. How many days do you think it's going to take before we get on to talking about Revelations 10, which is about weed, by the way? According to Rastafarians, Revelations 10's got nothing to do with, it's about Noah sent his ark, landed on the mountain, he sent out a bird, the bird came back with some cannabis, and we all smoked it, and that's divine. So we knew the world was saved. It's not exactly what Revelations 10 says, but that's their interpretation. So we started talking about Revelations 10. Then we started talking about Revelations 12. And then we started talking about Genesis. And then we talked about God. And then we talked about creation. And then we talked about why do we get stoned? And then we talked about there's an alternative to getting stoned. It's actually connecting with the Creator. And there we started to talk about, there wasn't really much Islam in there. It was Bob Marley and the Bible. And then he became Muslim. Another guy came to my house one day, and a Muslim guy brought him to the door, banging on the door, and I could look at his face and I could tell he supported Rangers. I just looked at his face and I knew he was a Rangers fan. And not that I'm prejudiced, and I wouldn't anyone think that I support Celtic, who happen to have been the champions for the last 5 years and have a much better team, but I'm not prejudiced. So I saw this guy, I could just look at his face and I knew he was a Rangers fan. And I looked at his hair and his bandana, I thought, this guy likes Eminem. How could you bring a Rangers fan that likes Eminem into my house, I was thinking. That's what my nafs was telling me. But my heart was telling me, this person has come to your house. وَمَنْ يُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ فَلْيَكْرِمْ ضَيْفَهُ. Whoever believes in Allah وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ, and the last day, should treat his guests well. So my nafs is saying, it's a Rangers fan! And the hadith is saying, treat him well if you're a Muslim. So eventually the battle is taking place inside me. Marhaba, come on, in you come. Offer him some drinks, start talking about football. Start talking about music. Talk a bit more about football. And the guy that brought him in is like getting really, really frustrated. I bring this guy to become Muslim, and all you do, what kind of Shaykh are you? Talk about football and music and football and music. And then I get a phone call. I need that book. So, okay, I'll tell you what, you wait at Lidl and somebody will come and deliver the book to you. Okay, just calm down, the book will be delivered, wait at Lidl for me. I turn to the brother, I said, do us a favour, take this book to Lidl, there's a guy waiting for it. Just go and take the book. So he goes off, goes to Lidl, comes back, opens the door, and I said, the brother wants to say Shahada. Will you sit down and listen to? And he's thinking, what? You talk to him for 45 minutes about music and football. I go out to Lidl for 2 minutes and he comes back and says the Shahada. What's the matter here? He said the Shahada and they left. I says, come back tomorrow. We'll carry on the discussion. Afterwards, the guy comes back and says, what did you do? What kind of magic do you do to these people? Simple. Was there any laghu in talking about football? In that case, laghu has no purpose. This had a purpose. It's to talk, to understand who the person is. And there was an intention, and there was a plan, and there was a benefit. So every word had some reason to it. And I remember just some guy was talking at one of these dawah stalls. And they were talking between themselves about guitars. And I just turned around to him and says, actually, the Strad is much better than that. He looked at me and says, what? You play a Strad? I says, I didn't say I play a Strad. I said a Strad is better than Les Paul. Says, oh, and then we started talking about guitars. Guess what? Alhamdulillah. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that time should not be wasted. But laghu, or frivolity, I think we used the word, or not, is permitted and has to be understood what context it is. And some people will say, well, what about things like music? And these time-wasting activities that we waste. Let me tell you a situation that happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He was sitting and there were companions. They were reciting Quran. And then they stopped, and then they started reciting poetry. Not poetry that was particularly, it wasn't about God. It was not divine religious poetry and such. It was just poetry. But it was beautiful. It was about, because Arabs, they love the language. And this was about expressing language. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq came in. And he was a bit perplexed why the Prophet ﷺ was allowing this to take place. So Abu Bakr said to him, a Quran wa shi'r? Is this Quran and poetry? And he turned, Ya Abu Bakr, sa'atan sa'atan. He says, Ya Abu Bakr, sa'atan sa'atan. And I think in Arabic it makes much more sense than in English. So you want to help me with the English?
Sometimes this, sometimes that.
That's what I would have said. A time for this, a time for that. That's how I would have translated it. A time for this, a time for that. And another occasion, and the reason I said that one first, so you can understand what the Prophet ﷺ said elsewhere, when he said, "Rawwihu qulubakum sa'atan sa'atan," make your hearts come to peace, an hour for this, an hour for that. And what that means is that sometimes you need a break from the intensity of certain worship, Quran, things like this, because the heart does not incline naturally towards worship, towards hard worship, towards mujahada. Sometimes it will go against it. And sometimes you need to give it enough space to enjoy the break from the worship, so that when you come back to the worship becomes more focused. And the perfect example was the sun and the, to be honest, I was thinking, can I get out of doing the next dars? That's what I was thinking. And I was thinking, none of these people are going to turn up for the dars. It's all right, I don't need to get out of it. Lo and behold, I come in at Asr's time, the mosque is full. But alhamdulillah, it worked. Because I think if we didn't have that break, I think it would have been difficult to have this discussion. So ساعة ساعة وروحوا قلوبكم ساعة ساعة. So sometimes you actually need to have that break of, I wouldn't say foolishness, but perhaps not being so focused, but it needs to be contained within the overall picture of what we've been saying. Does that make any sense? Are there any questions apart from is music permitted? Or why is a Stratocaster better than a Les Paul? Which is another matter completely.
I could have asked you that one.
And I just think a Strat is a better guitar. Don't you? Okay, but perhaps this should be led for. You're okay. Okay, name all the great guitarists that played a Strat compared to the great guitarists that played a Les Paul. Just because the Les Paul was the first. Anyway, let's not go there. All right. No other questions? And if you want to ask a question about is music permitted, perhaps we need to. I give you what my answer is that music in itself is permitted. There is nothing wrong with music because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created sound so that it would affect the spirit. He created sound so that it would affect the spirit. Now, because it affects the spirit, it needs to be controlled by law. So there are limitations that are put on music, not because music itself is evil, but because we need to make sure that the connection to the spirit is for the benefit of the spirit and not against the spirit. And that's why it goes back to clarify what the lahu is, because the person that goes out to get drunk on the Friday will usually associate that with music. And it'll be a particular type of music that they will choose because it helps them to forget. And that's why music is used in that way to damage the real spirit and help them to forget the purpose of their life. So therefore, you can see that there's dangers in music. Music can lift the spirit, it can destroy you. And that's why there needs to be restrictions put on music. So music is halal. There needs to be restrictions put on it. And if you look at what Al-Ghazali perhaps says is maybe the best, is that if you look at when the music is being performed, that will help you to decide whether that music is going to be beneficial or whether it's not beneficial. The time is a key factor. The second is the environment that is associated with the music. Because if you go to a Mawlid gathering or a gathering of sama, as we have in some place, sama is where you have just music just so people can lift their spirits, like the dervishes. And so this is the environment. So if the time is okay and the environment is okay, so far so good. And the third thing is, what is the call? What is the call of the music? What does it call you to? And that doesn't just mean the lyrics, because it's quite obvious. It is really, really obvious that certain songs are calling you to do haram. There was a craze a few years back. There's a metal band from Finland, and their music was really geared towards calling people to do bad. And whenever they played, churches got burnt because it was satanic music. And it was quite obvious that the consequence of their music was the burning of churches. And we can't condone the burning of churches, so we have to condemn the music. So that music is calling you to bad. And then there's other songs which are quite clearly bad. And then there are other things where the call is not through the music, the words, but is through the sound. And there are certain types of music where the beat is deliberately against the beat of the heartbeat. The dance beat is so fast that the purpose of and this is what the acid music, the purpose of acid music was for you to go boom, 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 boom. That was the whole purpose of the beat, so that you take the pills and you listen to this music until you forget life. So the beat is what makes that music. The call of the music is towards haram. The call of that music is towards haram. The call of that, so you need to be able to understand what is this music. So it's not so simple music is halal or music is haram. There are times, there are situations, and there are things related to the music which make it haram. And that's for people to try and understand in the context of what we're talking about. Anything to add to that, or want to contradict or discuss or take further, please?
Like when you were saying that, I was wondering, again, connected to like folk traditions, how come, or what is sort of the wisdom behind why so many forms of dhikr in various tariqas always seem to relate back to the folk tradition, things like folk dance developing into folk music?
Very good question. When dawah is successful, when calling people to Allah is successful, it's because it's organic and it fits into the culture of the people that you're delivering it to. If it's against the culture of the people that you're delivering it to, it will be rejected. Where it fits perfectly, and what it does, it changes things. There was a report in South Africa just before apartheid ended, written by the Dutch Reformed Church, to say that the biggest danger to South Africa is not the communists, which is what everybody thought, but it's actually Islam. And it's not because this is pre the rise of terrorism, pre-Afghanistan and all of that. And the reasons they explained is because Islam does not contradict African culture. But when people come to deliver the message of Islam to the African tribes, they don't change the culture completely. What they do is they refine it. And they gave the example is that they come along and they say, don't slaughter the goat to your ancestors. Slaughter the goat to the creator of your ancestors. Let's slaughter the goat now. And so they're saying it's more dangerous because Christianity, the purpose of the Dutch Reformed Church, is to reform, is to change. It's all about making them better. Whereas Islam, what they were saying was that it was organic. It came into the culture and you could still be African. You didn't have to become a Pakistani. And that's why Islam fails. It's because in Britain, being Muslim means being Pakistani. And I've tried my best to be Pakistani. Because my wife, not only does she like Oprah and Loose Women and all kinds of rubbish, she also speaks Urdu, which I believe and I love as a language. It's a beautiful language, and I love food. I love Pakistani food. It just doesn't love me. And it just gives me indigestion. So I'm trying my best to be as Pakistani as I possibly can. And I'm failing. And I'm almost there. I'm married to a Pakistani. I've got a son who can eat lamb bhuna till it burns. You can see the steam coming out of his ears. And he's, bahut acha hai. We go to a restaurant and they say 2 apana style, desi style, and one Gora style. He says, oh, for the baby. No, for him. And only the Pakistanis or those that know what I'm... So, but the problem with that is, I remember when I came to Glasgow the first time, there was a sister came to me, she phoned me, she says, you know, I love Islam. I've been Muslim for 3 months, but I'm really struggling. I says, no problem, we can talk about what you're struggling with. What is it? He says, it's mainly the Urdu. And I said, what? Yeah, it's mainly the Urdu. I really find that bit difficult. I'm not really... the rest of the Islam's fine, I just find the Urdu difficult. And I was just trying to work out what she was talking about. And obviously she thought that becoming Muslim meant becoming Pakistani. And it's not. Islam moves into a community and it refines what is good there. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِنِّي بُعَثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I came to complete or perfect good character. So it doesn't mean I've come to change people necessarily. It means I've come to bring out the best of the culture, of the character of the people. And I talked yesterday about how, did I talk in the Dars about how beautiful certain people are that I've met who are not Muslim? It seems the culture, and one of them was the first time I went to the north of Sweden. It was really quite breathtaking how generous some certain people were. And the other time was when I went to the southwest of Ireland. I went there for a particular purpose. A friend of mine had died. Well, he'd disappeared. Later we found out that he'd died. They'd sent a search party, a Norwegian. The British had searched for him, but the Norwegian army had said, British. So they sent an SAS troop out because he was a former Norwegian SAS trooper. So they went out and they couldn't find him. So I went out to see what I could do. And when I landed, I went to the village where I knew he stayed. First thing you do, you find a hotel. I went to the hotel and I says, can I have a night? They looked at me and says, are you Olaf's friend? What? Yeah, I'm Olaf's friend. Is your name Abdulaziz? I'm thinking, what? Yeah. He says, well, you can't stay here. I thought, that's a bit racist. Just because my name is Abdulaziz and I've got a friend called Olaf. He says, no, you can't stay in this hotel. We have to take you to somewhere special. Okay. So they took me to this farm. Total strangers. I don't know anybody in this village. I go to this farm and they say, don't worry. We've locked the dogs up. They're over on the other part of the farm because we know you're Muslim. And don't worry, everything will be halal tomorrow. No meat, and we make sure that we've got butter for cooking. I'm thinking, who are these people? Who are these people? I've never met any level of generosity like this except in some rare occasions amongst Arabs. I've never seen this in the West where I've grown up. To this level of hospitality, this is a total stranger has come to their house. And I says, well, actually, I've got no problem with dogs. I'm Maliki. I didn't say that, but I says, it's absolutely no problem. You know, you didn't have to lock the dogs up for me. I like dogs. So it was a really moving experience. And searching for Olaf with these people was just so moving. I had not seen akhlaq like this. And when they did find him a year later, or less, it was about a year later, we found his body. They asked if I could come and do the janazah with them. There's no Muslims. Actually, there's one Muslim who'd converted, and she was still living with her Christian family, including a Christian husband and a Christian kids. So she was really completely alone, and she's not interested in doing the janazah. But they asked, could you come and do the janazah in our village because we feel he belongs to us? I'm thinking, of course, I forgot to say Olaf had become Muslim, right? So I think you could have assumed that. But this level of akhlaq is just quite unbelievable. Now, if I went to that village and said, I'm coming to convert all of you people to the religion of Islam, do you think I would succeed? No. What you need to do is you need to live with them, to accept and understand what's good in their culture, and where there's something different and wrong, you need to help them correct it. For example, we have a drink problem in Scotland. It's not a coincidence that almost all, about 90% of my friends who have become Muslim had drink or drug problems. I don't think it's a coincidence that I just attract drunkards, although some people do say I attract drunkards. But I think it's because when you see something bad in a culture or difficult in a culture, you know, well, I've got the answer. Let me help them. Not, you're bad, I'm good, let me make you good. It's, I can help you with this problem. Those things are not a problem. Music, I actually like Celtic music. Celtic music is actually something which is very soothing, and I find it lifts me. You know, you should maybe, I mean, I don't know, if you probably know, don't you? You know what I'm talking. You know what I'm talking about. Why would I want to change it? Why would I want to change something so beautiful? Yeah. So that's why when Islam has been successful, it's because they recognize a culture and folk music and folk culture when it's valid, and if it's lasted for hundreds of years, it probably is valid. There's a lot of good in it. So anyway, does that answer your question? Right, any other questions? I think I should stop there before I start. I think because we've had quite a heavy day, and I think I'm going to be coming back to speak again, and it's about 6:20, and I think there'll be 2 sessions between that, so maybe we can have a 15-minute break, and then the ladies could come and have another 15 minutes, then we can have another session after that. So سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتوب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما.